Hello and welcome to this week's conversation with Women of Significance in STEM. And today we have Chara Reid-Reed with us, all the way from Chicago. Welcome, Chara.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Wonderful. Yes. So for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Leah Zalams, and I am the founder of Z-Axis Leadership Consultancy here in Sydney. And I focus very much on leader development for women in the science and technology market. So today's conversation is one in a series where we're exploring the mindset and the key decision points in women who are already doing great things in STEM, who have burst through the biases and challenges and different things, and they're still on the journey, because it's always a journey. But we're exploring sort of, you know, a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and or how you came to be doing what you're doing, and who you serve. Perhaps we can start with that, Chara.
Sure. So I'm Chara, pharmacist by trade. So I have 3 science degrees. So 1 bachelor's of science. I majored in biology, minored in physics. And then I have a bachelor of pharmacy and also my doctorate of pharmacy, which we call here in the US PharmD. I don't know if that's the same, it's called that everywhere or not. But yeah, so I have my doctorate of pharmacy, pharmacist by trade. I think, you know, when I started out my career, I wanted to be a retail pharmacist, you know, so the big name, one of the big chains is who I worked for. And I actually thought for sure that I would retire, you know, doing the same thing.
What was it specifically about pharmacy that drew you to specialize in that area?
So I would say I started at working at a retail pharmacy chain when I was in high school. So at 16, I was a cashier, and I kind of just picked that store because I could walk there, you know, because at 16, that's what you do. You go get a job, you know, and so it's the legal working age here in the US. And so I walked to work, and I just remember one day they needed help in the pharmacy, and they asked me to go back there and help. And I'm like, sure, you know, and I think at that point I started undergrad when I was 17. So I started college about a year early. And so I was working in the pharmacy and thought it was kind of cool, but my major at that point was education. That's what I went into college for, because I wanted to be a teacher. But I really liked working in the pharmacy, and I had a great kind of person who ended up sort of being a mentor to me, Nina, and she's like, why don't you go to pharmacy school? And I was like, I don't know, that never occurred to me, you know, and that kind of started my journey, kind of exploring what did I need to do to change my major to kind of go down this science path. You know, and that's what I did. I changed my major. I took summer classes so that I could still graduate. It took me a little bit longer. I graduated in 4.5 years with my undergrad, and then went on to pharmacy school and did my bachelor's in PharmD. But yeah, it was, I mean, just a chance thing, you know, working for a large chain and helping out in the pharmacy, and Nina kind of encouraging me that I was good at it. And I should think about, you know, doing this for a career, and I did, you know, so I have her still to this day.
Yeah, and
to thank for that decision.
And it's so important in those formative years, isn't it?
It's so important to speak into people's life.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, that is something, the fact that people spoke into my life at this young age of 17, 18, 19 years old, you know, is like such a huge responsibility for me to give back now, and to help mentor and help talk to people who, you know, otherwise maybe wouldn't have considered, you know, a field had someone not said anything to them about it. So
tell us more about that. Tell us more about what you're doing now.
So what I'm doing now, I do a lot of things now. So, you know, my journey was kind of interesting leaving retail. I kind of got to a point where I felt I wanted to do something a little different and kind of really took a big leap of faith, quitting my job. I was a manager at the time, and I quit this very stable company, and I took a $10 an hour pay cut, which is a lot of money. It's like about maybe more, $40,000 pay cut I took to go do something different. So still within pharmacy, but I felt like I needed a change. I did that for a couple of years, and that actually ended up being, that leap ended up being actually very life-changing for me in a sense, because it allowed me to get an experience to learn a different realm of pharmacy. I did that job for a couple of years, and that led to me going to work for a medical group, which really opened doors for me that I don't think ever would have thought would have opened for me. Working in a medical group and kind of taking charge of some different things there and being innovative, and really being given the leeway to better patient care. I think I didn't really ever have that leeway to do that at other companies, but this company was a little bit, pharmacy services were very new. And so for me to kind of get that opportunity and turn that opportunity really into 1,000 other opportunities is what I did. Why I did that, what was inside of me that made me do that, I have no idea. But I was just like, I can't believe I'm given this opportunity. And to me, I got that opportunity. It was like, I remember having an epiphany one day at work, and I was like, this job's gonna really change my life. And it did. It's weird, in a weird way, it really did. And that opened the door to me kind of coming on this journey of entrepreneurship and independent contractor work, and kind of, you know, having this idea in my head that, you know what, as a pharmacist, there's some other things that I can do. And it's weird because all of my contract work that I do right now is mostly education. So it's kind of weird circle that my kind of first true love of teaching has led to me working and making really good money teaching people for drug companies. So it's like, it's just this weird thing that, you know, that happened. But I think, you know, I don't know what that is that drove me to say, you know what, I want to do this. And there's just something that I was like, you know what, I can do this. And I would see other people and I'd be like, I can do that better. I'm sitting in lectures and I'm like, and I'm not learning anything, you know? So I'm like, there's no, like, I can get up there and do that and do it better. And
so where did
that's what I did.
from, Chara? Who was the first person that told you that? If you go back,
you know,
to early years.
when I think about my parents, and I kind of think about, you know, our culture here in the US, you know, being African American, it's been a tumultuous journey for a lot of families. You know, when you think about, I think about the fact that my mom was the 19th, no, her mom had 19 kids, and my mom was the 18th kid. You know, and she was the only one out of those 19 kids that went to college. And really, if you even hear her story, the fact that she went to college under, I mean, just impossible odds, you know, but she had a teacher that took her aside and was like, you're really smart. You're really smart. You need to go to college. Let me help you fill out the forms. Let me help you get funding. Let me help you find housing. And she really had this teacher in the inner city of Chicago that really took her under her wings and gave her, I think, this, you know, the opportunity to go to college. Like, they didn't think about college back then. I mean, my grandfather, so my mom's dad, only had a 3rd grade education. His grandmother was a slave. You know what I mean? These are like impossible odds. And it's crazy because there was like these generations of people. Where could we be had they had the opportunity of an education? So when I look at, my parents are educated. They met in college. They have college degrees. Have a doctorate degree. My sister has 2 doctorate degrees. My brother is educated. He has his degree. Like, I mean, we're like this kind of sort of second generation of being educated.
I would say, well, you are 4th generation if you go back to, look at it like in terms of your mom, your grandma, and great,
Right.
grandparents. But also what I'm seeing, Chara, is you have evidence of transformation in motion. Like your mother's story is right there in your heart. And it's like you're expanding and extending that and finding your unique way of doing the same thing, but going one step further.
I know.
And the reason that's really resonating with me right now is because last night I watched an interview with our former female Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, who is now launched her own book, Women and Leadership. And she was talking about her interview with Jacinda Ardern, who is the Prime Minister of New Zealand. And Jacinda Ardern said, look, for me, it's very different. I'm the 3rd female Prime Minister in New Zealand. So the community has gotten used to, a woman leading, whereas Julia was our first and so far only woman Prime Minister.
Wow.
So she was really like carving the way. So there was a lot of talk about that and about how we build on generational experience, and that the stance that we can either try to be putting our energy into changing the system and everything outside of ourselves, but she was all about what can I do about how I am being and how I am speaking and what I'm focusing on to work within the system as it is, with all those, gender and everything, every other kind of bias, right?
Yep.
So, this is really, really fascinating to hear your, version of exactly that aspect of the evidence within your environment that is deeply ingrained in you, that says, you see I can do that better, because that's often something not attributed to a lot of women in their career journey. A lot of women will look at that horrible thing where, if there's a job spec and women see 8 out of 10, oh no, I don't have 10 out of 10, so I can't go for it. Whereas a man with 6 out of 10 will apply. Right, but so it tells me you would, so tell us more about that. Tell us more about
I don't know. And I don't know if it was my parents. I mean, there was definitely an expectation in our home that you get an education. There was no, if, ands, or buts about that journey. You're taking that journey. We don't care what you do, but you're going on this journey, and my parents even were like, we didn't know you guys, my sister's a physician, a pharmacist and a physician. She didn't know we'd both kind of end up in STEM, both of us. But I just think about the fact that we've been so blessed to have this opportunity and have really taken this opportunity, but how much further would my family's generation be had my parents, my mom's siblings all had that same opportunity, and her parents had that opportunity. And you think about the generations that, that just didn't have this opportunity. How could I squander that? I can't squander that.
No, I'm hearing the power of one in 19.
I know.
But again, the power of someone else believing and supporting her
100%.
She couldn't do for herself. And then with you, it's almost that you needed like less because you came from a stronger base. So someone putting the idea that you could do really well in this area was enough for you to go for it. And here you're marrying your first love, education, with the medical technology like knowledge base, and making a positive difference in innovative ways for patients.
Yep, absolutely. And you know, and I love educating and now, you know, at this time in the US, like it's crazy here, you know, lots of racial tension and different things like that. And I know I'm not one person, like you said, going to change the system. I have to change myself, and I have to figure out how to work this system, you know, work within this system that I've been given. But my job now, and the thing that I do now, is to help mentor other African American pharmacist women to shorten their journey. You know, it's like I don't want them to have to, you know, figure out, work for a company for 20 years to figure out it ain't going anywhere right there.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you know, my job is to help mentor, and I've been very proactive about pharmacist women, and I've created a pharmacist women networking association, things that I didn't know or have anybody teaching me necessarily, taking these steps along the way to better ourselves and to really understand that, you know, here's one of the other things. I now am even like have my sights set even higher, because I have sat in rooms with VPs and with C-suite personnel, and I'm not impressed. And that those opportunities have done nothing but show me again that I can do that, and I can probably do it better.
And what are you seeing? What specifically are you seeing that you want to do differently?
So I think there's a lot of different things. So one of the things I think that I can do differently is be good at what I feel like there's a lot of people that aren't that good at what they do, but somehow they've gotten to where they got, you know, by, I don't know what, you know, privilege is probably the best word I could use. And
Yep.
and I feel like everything I've gotten, I've had to fight for it. And so usually when I am getting somewhere, it's because I really did earn it, and I really did do the work to get there. And I think when you do that work, you become a better leader, and you understand, and there's takeaways that you learn along this leadership journey. You know, and there's things that, and I tell people, you know, I even tell my staff, I'm like, you know, I am the leader, right, of this staff here, but really my job is to work for you. And my job is to remove barriers so that you can take care of your patients more seamlessly, right? My job is not to take care of the patients anymore at this point, but my job is to help make it easier for my team to take care of patients. And when you understand that, and understand that you don't know everything, you know, and that's a lot of times, sometimes what I see in executives is this thing that they think they know it all, you know. And even when they're confronted, I've had instances where I've confronted people with the truth who were in positions above me, and they don't want to listen. And so I'm just like, how can you be a good leader if you're not willing to listen to the people who are on the front lines? Like if you think your way is the right way, and or the only way, and you don't want to take advice from people who you know may know something more than you, then I'm not that impressed with your leadership. And frankly, you're not that great of a leader to me. And that's where I look at that situation and say, you know what, I can do your job, and I can probably do it better. You know, and that's not to like brag, but that's just like the reality. You know, I know that I can be good at whatever it is I decide to put my mind to. I can do a good job at it.
So it sounds like you're not afraid to call out the elephant in the room, Chara, right?
It gets me in trouble a lot.
And what happened? Tell me about that. No, and what does it mean to get in trouble? Because this is the other challenge often we have as women, that we're seen often as being too agreeable, that we're either trying to please the boss or please the team, and we're not taking care of ourselves, and we're not actually speaking our truth for fear of retribution, right? So there's a lot of talk around, particularly in the legal profession at the moment as well, where women are afraid to speak out because of the impacts on their career, and the fact they'll be sidelined, they won't get promotion, or that So tell me what happens when you
It
get into trouble.
happens. I have had instances where I firmly believe that I did not get the promotion because of what I look like. You know, not what's up here, but really what I look like, and the way that sometimes people don't want people on the team who will call stuff out. And I remember hearing not that long ago, I remember hearing I was going for a promotion, and I was not getting in the interview, and it was an internal promotion, and I wasn't getting interviewed, and I was kind of just like down about the fact that it was like there was this refusal to interview me. And I was hearing, because pharmacy is a small world, that other people were getting interviews outside of my organization. And one person in particular had asked, even though this person was outside of the organization, had known me and said, well, why are you not considering Chara? Like, I'm surprised she's not going for this thing. And what they told her was, well, we have a problem with her management style. But no one told me that. So I'm like, if there's something wrong with my management style, why am I not aware of it? You know, like, why has no one sat down? And to me, either I'm doing a good job or you're going to tell me how to improve. So if I have no feedback on how to improve, how can I get better? How can I improve myself? How can I then position myself so that I can make these improvements to set myself up, you know, to get that promotion, you know? And so when you hear those sorts of things, but those things never come back to you per se, directly to you, it makes you wonder, you know? And then I am like, okay, you know what? It probably is because I will speak my mind. And that doesn't mean like being rude, you know, like you have to do that in a very diplomatic, professional way, depending on what the situation is. It doesn't mean you're like a bull in a china shop, you know? You still gotta be, you know, you gotta do things in a professional way. So
That's the skill to learn, isn't it? How to express an alternate viewpoint, or to ask. It's the how we are communicating that is more important today than ever. And even the difference between now communicating more across screens than we used to, right? Because of all the COVID thing, the how of how we approach those hard conversations.
Right. And so that those things just always make me wonder, if I'm not getting feedback, but I'm hearing there is feedback, but it's not coming to me, like, why is that? Like, what is it about me that you're not giving me the feedback? You know, is it true? Is that the truth? And because also too, if you're going to come and give me feedback, I'm going to want examples of what you're saying. It can't just be this, we have issues with your management style. I'll be like, okay, well, you need to tell me examples where this was a problem, you know, because it can't be, you know, if you're going to be given feedback, it can't just be nebulous. It needs to be concrete, you know, feedback, you know, and I'm open, you know, to feedback. So then that made me just wonder, you know, why am I struggling so much, especially in this one particular thing? And then it also makes you wonder, why do I struggle so much here? And I don't have these same struggles in other areas of my career. So outside of this 9 to 5, I'm not struggling at all. I'm getting booked to speak all over the country pre-COVID. You know, I'm flying all over the country. I'm flying out of the country. I'm getting all of these, you know, really cool opportunities outside. Then why am I struggling so much inside? You know, and I think that's why so many women that look like me turn to entrepreneurship. It just almost becomes the natural thing to do, because you get tired of struggling for no reason. It seems like no reason that you're having the struggle.
So it sounds to me then, does entrepreneurship provide more of this equal playing field that we talk about? Or
I think that it does. And entrepreneurship is not something that I was ever even remotely interested in, but you almost get pushed to start thinking outside the box because what's in the box isn't working for you because you don't fit in the box.
Yeah.
You know? And so
Yeah.
you almost you do, because then it's like, okay, you start working on your own terms. And then you start realizing, you know, that the field is a lot bigger than what you might be doing in your 9 to 5. The field is bigger, and you have more opportunity to have people truly judge you by the work that you produce. And they're
Yes,
not
well,
interested in anything else. It's just
yeah.
about the work that you produce.
But the idea for many people to leave that security of the weekly paycheck, a lot of women will put up with not fitting in the box and ultimately just shutting up and putting up, right?
Mm-hmm.
As
Yeah.
opposed to taking that leap, right? Because of going into entrepreneurship. So I'm curious to hear how you have, you know, where do your revenue streams come from now if you've given up
Yeah.
the
So
paycheck?
I haven't given up the paycheck at this point. So, but what I did do is find an organization that works better for me.
Yeah.
So that happened, you know, and honestly, and I will say, even in that exit, I was very frank about why I felt I was struggling. You know, I had really nothing to lose by being very open about the fact that I couldn't put my finger on it and I couldn't prove anything, but why I had a hunch, why I was struggling. You know, I kind of spelt that out, you know, and maybe that's going to help the next girl after me, you know, and that's really, you know, my hope. It didn't work for me, but maybe it'll help the next person. So I do still work a regular job. You know, I'm not to the point where I can fully, you know, support myself with contract work, and sort of in a good way, because COVID
Oh, yeah.
has really dried up. I mean, a lot of my work went away in a week.
Yeah.
You know, thousands of dollars of things that I had booked to do went away. And of course, now things are slowly coming back and we're moving to virtual, and we're trying, you know, people are getting creative about how to do, you know, some of these things now. So it's actually thankfully worked out, you know, that that I still am working, but I feel like now, okay, I'm working someplace that's not, it's not about what I look like, you know, it really is about what work am I going to produce. And I think too, you know, when I make decisions, not just, you know, because I'm struggling per se, but also I make those decisions about where I'm going to work on what is going to be the next opportunity for me to learn, you know. So I need to continue to be stretching myself and be challenged and in the work, because that just makes me a better employee all around. It makes me a better pharmacist. It makes me a better administrator, you know, because I think the more you learn that you don't know everything. So
Oh,
as you go
absolutely.
along that journey, you start realizing, oh, really
Yes.
know everything.
And the idea too of entrepreneurship around what problem do you solve, and
Mm-hmm.
why is this problem important, and what is made possible when you solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a
Mm-hmm.
little bit about that.
Yeah, so you know, so my things that I do that are my entrepreneurial side of things that I do. So one is creating Pharmacist Women Networking Association. And that was like a brainchild that literally I had one day, realizing I was not finding these meaningful networking opportunities within the realm of pharmacy. No organization was meeting that need. And I didn't even realize that I don't think I quite wrapped my head around how big the need was until I was like, hey, let me do this, you know, and kind of started grassroots on Facebook, inviting my friends. They invited their friends, and this group kind of grew. And then me and a friend were talking, and we're like, hey, you know, this would be cool if we could like all meet like we're doing all this stuff virtually and we're talking to each other online, but we haven't necessarily all sat in a room. And I remember putting out the invite, and it was obviously going to be local here in Chicago. And I put out the invite, and I thought maybe 20 people, and I figured half of those would be my friends who are pharmacists would come. And I remember going to the dinner program that we had set up, and 50 women came. And I was shocked, like, holy cow. And I mean, all night long, women were telling me, we can't believe no one ever thought of this before. This is so amazing. This is just what we needed. This is what we needed to connect. We needed to, form form these bonds. And really, I mean, and it's not, to like solve hunger, right? It truly is a social organization.
We are social beings, but it's connection.
Very social,
like-minded
right? And
people. Yep.
And so we're not solving, it's not this, it doesn't have this gravity to it. It's just fun, and it's, and we're connecting, and I am like you. I want to hear other women's stories. I want to hear how they got to where they got to, what they're doing. And I said, we work in these organizations and we're all so siloed from each other. We don't really know necessarily, unless you're like a close friend, we don't necessarily know what other pharmacists can do. We don't even know what pharmacists are capable of doing because we're not talking to each other and telling each other what we're doing. And I'm like, this, or you go, and one of the other things that I would complain about was I would go to these meetings, these big national pharmacist meetings, and nobody would talk to you. I remember going to this very, very big meeting and never feeling so alone as in that room, with pharmacists from all over the country. And I'm like at a table and nobody wants to talk. And so I'm like, we're not doing that. So if you come to my event, it is like, sit with people you don't know. I'm like, you already know what your girlfriends do. Don't sit with your girlfriends. Go sit with other pharmacists. And the whole point is to get to know the other people at your table. So even if you come and you don't come with a friend, you're going to walk away with some friends. You're going to walk away feeling really good about this thing that you maybe even pushed yourself to do. I'm an extrovert. It's not hard for me to go walk into a room of people that I don't know, but not everyone has my personality, So I want women to walk in there and talk to the other women. And I'll tell you, the last event that we did pre-COVID kind of hitting the fan was in February. We did an event in March at the beginning, but that was just, we were kind of hearing, and I think people were we were a little bit kind of nervous about if we should even do that program. But in February, it wasn't even on our mind. And 80 women came, and that was our 1-year anniversary of starting the monthly dinner networking programs. And I mean, it was standing room only. There were so many women in that room, it probably wasn't even legal how many people were in that restaurant in that room. But I mean, nothing was so like confirming as then when I looked around, not everybody wanted to talk to me, but people were like there were pockets of conversations of women all over the room. And I was like, this is what I envisioned. This is what I wanted. This is so incredibly cool that I figured out a way to meet a need that I wasn't even 100% sure at that point existed, but clearly I tapped into something. There's something when 80 women come out to dinner.
Absolutely. And connection, community, relationships, and opportunities, and will manifest out of what begins as social conversations of like-minded women. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So where to next for you, Chara? We've got a couple of minutes left. So, clearly, you're a woman of action, you're inspiring, you've got this grittiness about you that, as you share about your family background and the way you make meaning of things, right? It's like, hey, if I'm hearing this feedback, why aren't you telling me directly to my face? You know, if I don't know about it, I can't do anything about it. So welcoming feedback, because they say too, feedback is the breakfast of champions, and that's how we can, you know, move forward, is by working with the feedback that comes from our environment. And here you are, you know, being the driver of creating community, that again, it's not necessarily being really clear about the end point, but you know that there's something that can be done better than what you were experiencing at those national events. So you're clearly a change maker by, you know, from something that's very deep within you.
Yeah, I don't even, you know, I don't know, you know, what's next. I mean, I have this drive, and I don't know 100%. I mean, I guess it's, I don't know, I was born with it. You know, I don't know, but I have this thing, you know, and I'm like, we need, and I feel very strongly, you know, as an African American female, that we need representation, and women need to be able to look to other people, women, Black women who've accomplished something, and know that they can do it too. It is about, and I like harp on this thing, I'm like, it is about representation. It is about representation, you know. Not everyone's going to have this thing in them that they're going to look and be like, oh, I can do that better. Not everyone, you know, is going to have that epiphany, right? And so, but if you see someone who looks like you doing something really cool and amazing, what better, what more inspiration, you know, can I give but that? You know, by tackling something, by letting other women know, women and specifically African American women, that you can do it. You know, you can, the sky is the limit. You don't, and that's fine if like you're very happy doing your regular job or part-time or whatever it is. If that's what makes you happy, great. But I think, you know, I'm like, I want to connect with those women who want to do something, you know, who want to make some changes, and, you know, and who want to be movers and shakers in this pharmacy community, because now I realize it, and I didn't realize it, you know, when I first came out of school, that really the sky is the limit. And I had this thing, and I would always wonder like why I wouldn't get picked, you know, to do something. Why didn't they pick me to do that project? And why are you not using me to, you know, in leadership? And why? And I always had that in me, that I knew that I could be a leader. You know, and I don't know, maybe it was our firstborn because I'm the oldest, I don't know, but I just knew that I could do it. And what better thing can I do for someone else to show them that, and to say, to look at someone like me, because I don't have anyone that I'm looking who's ahead of me per se, who's, you know, who looks like me and is like the superstar in pharmacy. I don't know anyone. You know, they may exist, but I don't know who they are, and they're certainly not mentoring me, you know. And so I'm like, I just, you know, so even yesterday I had a mentorship call. I'm going to do it monthly. These mentorship calls, we're going to try to keep it small, keep the group small, but it really is specifically for African American female or male pharmacy students or new grads, so I can help them understand what they can achieve. You know, there's great things that can be achieved, and sometimes you just need that person to mention it to you, you know, to bring it up to you, you know. And we've had, you know, the fact that my mom had that, the fact that I had that, you know, like, why would I not want to pass that on? You know, we got to keep passing that on. And I tell people, if I mentor you, please do me the favor and mentor somebody else. You know, we got to keep lending a hand back. You know, if I give you a hand, you got to promise me you're going to put your hand back too and help the next, you know, help the next one along, as, you know, what I ask, you know.
Yeah. And that's a really important point, isn't it? Because that's also where we build that reciprocity, and where the whole becomes so much bigger than the sum of its parts. And this is where you know, again, you have such a deep-rooted, committed belief in that what you do does and will make positive impact. And that's what we need to instill and inspire in others. And that is the first quality in effective leadership, is to be speaking out in ways that do move others to take action. You clearly have that in spades, Chara. And
thank you.
you know, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. I feel we've barely opened the lid.
I know.
On this, but you know, it's a great, you know, introductory first conversation. And I guess if you were now thinking back to, say, 10 years ago, if you had one thing or knew one thing 10 years ago that could have accelerated you even faster or made the journey, you know, easier in some way, what would that one thing be?
Oh man, I really wish I would have known how important it is to network, how important it is to create connections. I was not it's not that I wasn't good at connecting with people. I wasn't strategic in the sense, and not that to mean that like in a way that's like, you know, sinister or anything. I was not deliberate about how I networked, you know, and I think people need to be deliberate. Like if I have a pharmacy student that reaches out to me, because sometimes they'll reach out to me several times and be like, hey, can you mentor me? Can you mentor? Like, be persistent. Like, how am I going to tell that person no? You know, it's like, be persistent with what you want. Don't take no for an answer. I think sometimes we're far too, you know, easy to take no for an answer, and we're far too scared sometimes to make a change, you know. But if you're not fulfilled in your career, you gotta make a change, you know, and there's ways to do that that don't leave you without food, you know, that don't leave you without a paycheck. There's ways. You just have to be persistent. And I tell people, it didn't take overnight for me to change my career. This was like a 10, 15-year journey, you know, for me to get the opportunities that I get. They didn't, because sometimes people think like it just happens overnight. It didn't happen overnight. I tell people, you gotta do the work. You know, you gotta do the work. You have to be strategic about what you do, and you have to be deliberate about making meaningful connections, and not connections that are just like, what can you do for me? No, it's a two-way street. You know, you're connecting with people, and you never know where those connections are going to lead. Almost all of my extra work has come from the fact that I have made connections, and sometimes they're 1, 2, 3 year relationships, and then something pops up and they think, oh, hey, I should call Chara to do that. You know, but you've already done the time and put in the time, and you have a friendship and a connection and a working relationship.
Yeah.
So
wonderful. I've thoroughly enjoyed exploring your journey a little bit, and hearing that incredible, the can-do leader in action is what you are, Chara. And I really value you taking the time to share some of your secret sauce. And there's so much relying on what we put in and what we put out. And you've shared lots of valuable ways of seeing things. So if people want to connect with you, other pharmacists or people that are looking for speakers, where is the best way or best place for them to connect?
So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Chara Reid-Reed. Yeah, married to Reed.
Right. That's hilarious.
Married to Reed, which is funny. Find me on LinkedIn, message me. That's probably one of the quickest, easiest ways to connect. And I can certainly put people in touch with, you know, pharmacist women if that's something they're interested in. We have finally moved to virtual, you know, opportunities now, which is cool because now people can tune in from wherever they are in the world now at this point. And so, but LinkedIn is probably the easiest, quickest way to get a hold of me.
Fantastic. I'll definitely put that link into the notes. Thank you
Thank
again,
you.
Chara.
It was so great to meet you.